The man who owned America. The untold story of John D. Rockefeller. Picture this. A 16-year-old boy walks through the muddy streets of Cleveland, Ohio, in 1855. His shoes are worn, his suit secondhand, but his ledger book is immaculate. Every penny earned, every cent spent, recorded with obsessive precision. His name is John Davison Rockefeller, and he's about to change the world forever. But here is what most people do not know. Before he became the richest man in American history, worth over $400 billion in today's money, he was desperately poor, and the methods he used to build his empire were so ruthless, so calculated, that they would eventually force the United States government to break up his company. This is the story of how a quiet, religious bookkeeper became the most powerful businessman America has ever seen. And trust me, it's nothing like you'd expect. Act 1. The Hunger, the Seeds of Ambition. John D. Rockefeller was born in 1839 in upstate New York, and his childhood was defined by two things: poverty and betrayal. His father, William Avery Rockefeller, was a con man. Literally, he sold fake miracle cures, pretended to be a doctor, and would disappear for months at a time, leaving young John, his mother Eliza, and his siblings to fend for themselves. They moved constantly, always one step ahead of creditors or angry customers. But here's where it gets interesting. His father actually taught him something valuable. William would make deals with young John and then deliberately cheat him. When John protested, his father would say, "I cheat my boys every chance I get. I want to make them sharp." Twisted. Absolutely. But it worked. Meanwhile, his mother was the complete opposite. Deeply religious, frugal to an extreme, she instilled in John an almost pathological discipline. She taught him that waste was a sin, that every penny mattered, that God rewarded hard work and careful planning. This combination created something unique, a man who was ruthlessly calculating in business, but saw his success as a divine mission. The first deal at 16, Rockefeller got his first real job as an assistant bookkeeper at a shipping firm. The salary, 50 cents a day. He would later celebrate the anniversary of this day for the rest of his life, calling it more important than his birthday. Why? Because he discovered something that would define his entire career. Information is power. As a bookkeeper, he saw everything, every transaction, every profit margin, every business deal. He learned which industries were profitable, which weren't, who paid their debts, who didn't. While everyone else saw numbers on a page, Rockefeller saw patterns, opportunities, weaknesses. He saved every penny. Slept in cheap boarding houses, walked everywhere to save on transportation, and he recorded everything in his famous ledger A, which he kept his entire life. By age 20, he had saved $1,000. That's roughly $35,000 today. For a poor kid, in 1859, that was a fortune, and he was just getting started. Act 2. The oil game. Seeing the future in 1859. Something happened that would change everything. Oil was discovered in Pennsylvania. Now, most people thought oil was just a novelty. It was smelly, difficult to refine, and mainly used for lamp fuel. But Rockefeller saw something different. He saw that kerosene could replace expensive whale oil. He saw that demand would explode. And most importantly, he saw that everyone was focusing on drilling for oil, while the real money was in refining it. Think about it. Thousands of people were drilling wells, competing with each other, driving down prices, but there were only a handful of refineries. Rockefeller understood a principle that would make him billions. Control the choke point, control the industry. In 1863, at age 24, he invested in his first oil refinery. Within 2 years, it was the largest refinery in Cleveland. But here is where Rockefeller's genius really showed. While everyone else was worried about drilling more oil, he was obsessed with efficiency. The efficiency obsession. Rockefeller studied every aspect of the refining process. How much did each barrel cost? How much waste was there? Could they use the waste products? His competitors would throw away the byproducts of refining. Rockefeller turned them into other products: lubricating oils, petroleum jelly, paraffin wax. Nothing was wasted. His competitors bought barrels from manufacturers. Rockefeller realized they could make their own barrels cheaper. So he bought forests and built his own barrel factory. His competitors paid railroad companies to ship their oil. Rockefeller shipped so much oil that he negotiated massive discounts. Then he got something even better. Rebates. The railroads would actually pay him part of what his competitors were paying to ship their oil. Think about that. He was making money off his competitors' shipping costs. By 1868, his company was refining more oil than anyone else in Cleveland. But Rockefeller wasn't satisfied. He wanted it all. The Standard Oil machine in 1870, Rockefeller founded Standard Oil. And this is where the story gets dark. Rockefeller had a strategy he called the good sweating. Here's how it worked. First, he'd approach a competitor and make a reasonable offer to buy their refinery. If they accepted, great. If they refused, phase 2 began. Standard Oil would drop prices so low that they operated at a loss. They could afford to do this because they were so efficient and well capitalized. The competitor couldn't. They'd watch their business bleed money, unable to compete. Meanwhile, Rockefeller would use his relationship with railroads to make shipping costs higher for that specific competitor. He'd convince the few buyers in the region not to purchase from them. Slowly, methodically, he would strangle their business until they had no choice but to sell. Now at a much lower price than his original offer. One rival refinery owner later said, Rockefeller was like a general who, seeing that his enemy's lines were wavering, rushed up every available man to break through. By 1880, Standard Oil controlled 90% of America's oil refining capacity. Not 50%, not 70%, 90%. Act 3. The Empire and the Reckoning, the octopus at its peak. Standard Oil was unlike anything America had ever seen. It wasn't just an oil company. It was an empire. Rockefeller controlled the railroads through shipping agreements. He controlled the pipelines. He even controlled the wholesale and retail networks. If you bought kerosene in America, you were almost certainly buying from Rockefeller, even if you didn't know it. He pioneered the concept of vertical integration, controlling every step from extraction to sale. He created one of the first multinational corporations, expanding into Europe, Asia, and South America, and he did it all from a simple office in New York, often working just a few hours a day. He had built a machine so efficient, so dominant, that it almost ran itself. But there was a problem. People were starting to notice. Backlash. Journalists began calling Standard Oil the octopus because its tentacles reached into every part of American life. Small business owners who had been crushed by Rockefeller's tactics told their stories. Politicians began to listen. The most famous critic was a journalist named Ida Tarbell. Her father had been an oil producer ruined by Standard Oil. She spent years investigating Rockefeller, publishing a devastating series of articles that exposed his methods. One particular practice outraged people. Rockefeller had created fake, independent companies that were secretly owned by Standard Oil. They'd compete with real independent companies, driving them out of business, then revealed they'd been Standard Oil all along. The public was furious. This wasn't fair competition. This was monopoly, manipulation, corporate warfare. But here's the fascinating contradiction. While Rockefeller was building this ruthless empire, he was also deeply religious. He taught Sunday school. He believed he was doing God's work by bringing efficient, cheap kerosene to millions of people. He once said, I believe the power to make money is a gift from God, to be developed, and used to the best of our ability for the good of mankind. Did he believe this? Absolutely. Was he also destroying competitors without mercy? Also, yes. This is what made Rockefeller so complex. He wasn't a cartoon villain. He genuinely believed he was making the world better while simultaneously crushing anyone who stood in his way. The breakup in 1911, after years of legal battles, the Supreme Court ordered the breakup of Standard Oil. The monopoly was too powerful, too anti-competitive. It was split into 34 separate companies. You know what happened next? Rockefeller became even richer. Those 34 companies, many of them became some of the most valuable corporations in history. Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, BP. Rockefeller owned shares in all of them. As they grew independently, his wealth multiplied. The man who had been forced to give up his monopoly ended up wealthier than ever. It's one of history's greatest ironies. Act 4. The Transformation the Philanthropist. But here's where Rockefeller's story takes its most unexpected turn. In his later years, Rockefeller became obsessed with giving his money away, not just small donations. Massive, systematic philanthropy on a scale never seen before. He created the Rockefeller Foundation, which combated hookworm disease in the South, funded medical research, and supported education. He founded the University of Chicago. He established the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research, which made groundbreaking advances in fighting yellow fever, meningitis, and other diseases. By the time he died in 1937 at age 97, he had given away over $540 million, roughly $10 billion in today's money. Why did he do this? Some say it was guilt. Some say it was strategy to repair his reputation. But those close to him said he genuinely believed that accumulating wealth was only half of his divine mission. Giving it away wisely was the other half. He approached philanthropy the same way he approached business, with meticulous planning, obsessive efficiency, and a focus on systemic change rather than temporary relief. The legacy. So what do we make of John D. Rockefeller? Was he a visionary who revolutionized industry and brought affordable energy to millions? Yes. Was he a ruthless monopolist who crushed competitors and manipulated markets? Also yes. Was he a generous philanthropist whose foundations continue to do good work today? Absolutely. Absolutely. Was he driven by a complex mix of religious conviction, personal ambition, and an almost superhuman discipline? Without question. Rockefeller's life shows us something uncomfortable. Greatness is rarely pure. The same qualities that made him phenomenally successful, his relentless efficiency, his calculating nature, his willingness to see opportunities others missed, also made him willing to destroy anyone in his path. Today, we remember Rockefeller as America's first billionaire, the man who defined what it meant to build a business empire. His techniques, both brilliant and brutal, shaped modern capitalism. But perhaps his most lasting lesson is this. He understood that success isn't about working harder than everyone else. It's about seeing patterns others miss, controlling what matters, and having the discipline to execute your vision no matter what. Whether that vision makes you a hero or a villain, well, that depends on whether you were working with him or against him. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, let me know what business figure you'd like to hear about next.